What's going on, YouTube? It's Joey back with another Millie Maker video for NFL Week 9 on DraftKings. Week 8 was an interesting week, to say the least. I took a big fat L. Yep, I lost for the first time in over 3 weeks. Just did not have a good week. I did not cash in tournaments. I did not cash in my cash game. So it was just a rough week over here. And, you just have to bounce back. So looking forward to this week. But before we get into that, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. It's free to subscribe. We're 2 subscribers away from 100. So it would mean a lot if you can hit that subscribe button, get us to triple digits. And if you wouldn't mind, you could leave a like on the video as well. Or comment down below your thoughts on my lineup for week 8. Or any general DFS thoughts or fantasy questions that you might have. We respond to all comments, so make sure you comment down below. And then if you want, you could check out the recap episode of the DFS Dose. You can see I'm rocking the DFS Dose t-shirt, which you can go and buy on the DFSDose.com if you want to help support Ben and myself. But without further ado, let's get into the recap for NFL Week 8 real quick. So for NFL Week 8, I decided to run a Bengals stack. So Joe Burrow, Tyler Boyd, AJ Green, and I brought it back with AJ Brown. And I highlighted this stack in my Millie Maker video for NFL Week 8, which came out 1 week ago today. If you want to go and check that video out and see what I was on for the previous week. But I was not really concerned about weather. If you follow me on Twitter, I said nobody is scared of a little wind, and that was the case for me this week. Like, I'm not going to not play these professional athletes because of a little 20-mile-an-hour winds. Like, absolutely no shot. So I decided to stack this game. 2 Bengals pass catchers with Burrow, brought it back with Henry and AJ Brown. I thought this was going to be one of the higher, fastest paced games on the slate, and I thought the Titans would easily control this game with Derrick Henry, and it just didn't happen. The Bengals came out, they won by 11, they controlled the entire game. AJ Green, who is absolute dust, busted. So all in all, a tough lineup, only scored 124 points, as you can see, absolutely terrible. I also did have another Millie Maker team, which we can see right here. Not going to go too into depth, but I decided to play Lamar to Hollywood. I said Hollywood was my favorite tournament play on the DFS Dose podcast, so decided to run that stack with Deontay Johnson, and yeah, as you can see, snowflakes everywhere. It's Christmas in November, so just an absolutely terrible lineup. But I will say I did have one good team if we go and look at one of my tournament teams. I ended up scoring 201 points with this lineup with a Russ, Metcalf, Ayuk stack. Just absolutely a very, very good lineup. Now, I will say I could have made 2 better plays right here. And the 2 swaps that I could have made would have been going down to Dolphins defense for 200 less, and that would have correlated with Myles Gaskin, so that was kind of an oversight on my part, and that would have been, an extra 20 points in this lineup. And then if I move from MVS, which I correlated with Cook, so you always want to correlate your lineups, which, that's fine at 2%, 3,800, and the flex, a guy that has a high ceiling, but I could have went 2 Niners wide receivers with Kendrick Bourne for a couple $100 cheaper. Instead of MVS, I just had a complete oversight with this lineup, had MVS in the flex instead of in one of the wide receiver spots, which is an L. Like, you should never have the early games in the flex. And then not correlating my defense with my running back was also an oversight. And if I make those 2 pivots, I, take down this tournament. So it is what it is. Had a very, very good lineup in this one in a $3 contest, but nothing too crazy. So with that being said, let's just get right into the Week 9 outlook for the Millionaire Maker contest on DraftKings. All right, let's take a look at my favorite stacks for the Millie Maker contest on DraftKings. As you can see, $1 million to first. I play in it every single week in hopes of winning $1 million, changing my life. And if I won $1 million, I would definitely be the happiest man on the planet, and I would give some money back to whoever follows the DFS Dose, as I mentioned, rocking the DFS Dose shirt right now while I'm recording this video. And this week, gosh, it's so good this week. There are so many viable stacks. It is not like last week where, it was ugly. There was a lot of weather. A lot of the teams that are on this slate weren't on that slate. So this is fantasy heaven for week 9. You got Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, who has been absolutely fantastic this year. And there are just numerous ways that you can go. And, I'm going to have stacks of all of these guys in tournaments. I'm going to stack the Cardinals. I'm going to stack the Seahawks. I'm going to stack the Texans. I'm going to stack the Bills against Seattle. But for this video specifically, I'm going to highlight one game that is my favorite game, and that is the Cardinals and Dolphins game. Now we have Kyler Murray and Tua Tagovailoa facing off in this 425 matchup. Cardinals are at home. This game has a total of 48 points, and this is one of my favorite games to target in large field tournaments. I think Kyler Murray will get lost in the shuffle with Russell Wilson being right there and Josh Allen being right there as well, and even Deshaun Watson. I don't think anybody is going to play Tua in this spot at 5,500. That is a very favorable price tag going up against the Cardinals defense that ranks 23rd in terms of passing yards allowed. They rank 25th in terms of rushing yards allowed, and they are, one of the worst defenses in the NFL. So this is a boom spot for Tua. And I know the Dolphins kind of hid him in that matchup against the Rams last week, but I would expect Tua to have a great game in this spot. And at 5,500, it just allows for you to fit in a lot of studs at his very favorable price tag. And then obviously I have to talk about Kyler real quick, 7,800. He's been literally the best fantasy player in the NFL in 2020, as he is number 1 overall in terms of fantasy points. His floor is incredible. He has a floor of 24 points and a ceiling of 40 plus. And in this spot at home against Miami, I like him a lot. This should be a higher scoring game. But the Dolphins have been tough against opposing quarterbacks and wide receivers, and they do have one of the best pressure units in the NFL. The Dolphins defense isn't a slouch defense by any means. So I think in this spot, I'm going to take a chance on Tua in a large field tournament. But there are plenty of options to stack this game in. You have D-Hop and Christian Kirk, who both have very favorable price tags. You can never go wrong with playing DeAndre Hopkins. He is a man amongst boys out there, and he is Kyler Murray's favorite target. So I love DeAndre Hopkins this week. Preston Williams and Devontae Parker are both cheap. Mike Gesicki is 4,400. You can even play Chase Edmonds at 6,800, a home favored running back. You can never go wrong. With no Kenyon Drake, this is a boom spot for Chase Edmonds, and he should come at half the ownership of a guy like Dalvin Cook, CMC if he's back, etc. So I like Chase Edmonds in tournaments, and this is my favorite tournament game for this week. It's going to be lower owned than some of these other games, like Seattle Buffalo is going to be high owned. I think the Houston and Jags game is going to be high owned. So you can get this game at an ownership discount, and there are phenomenal plays in this game. So if you want to win $1 million, make sure you play this game or play pieces of this game. And if you're playing in the late only slates, I would advise stacking this game. I know that the Steelers are in a good spot, and I do like them as a team stack, but this game could be a shootout that is projected to not be a shootout with only a total of 48 points, like I mentioned earlier. So I would say to stack this game, that is my favorite game. Now I'm only going to mention one other game that I like, and it, like I just said, it's going to be one of the chalkiest games, and that is Seattle Buffalo. I mean, you have the Bills at home, who have been one of the best offenses in the NFL, going up against the Seattle Seahawks, who, may be the best offense in the NFL. I know they probably are the second or the best offense in the NFC, but I mean, you can never go wrong with Russell Wilson, who is 7,600. Josh Allen at 7,000 is a phenomenal play this week, going up against a Seattle defense that we know is a pass funnel. The Bills have been a pass funnel to start this year as well, so both quarterbacks are in plays. I'll just plug Russell Wilson in. Chris Carson could be out for this game, so I want to expect him to be back. Zach Moss has overtaken Devin Singletary in terms of salary, so I mean, you could take a shot on Singletary, who still had 15 touches in that game, just did not score the touchdowns like Zach Moss did against New England. DJ Dallas, who was the stone minimum, and I kind of talk shit about him on the podcast, and he's not the best athlete, but if he sees this type of usage, 5 catches, 5 targets in this game, I think you can play him in large field stuff, but I would probably just focus on playing the passing attacks in this game. I mean, DK Metcalf is a grown-ass man. My co-host Ben believes that he is a top 5 wide receiver, which I may or may not agree with, but he is still a phenomenal play. And I'm pretty sure he is leading the NFL in wide receiving yards to start 2020. So, I mean, just a phenomenal play in one of the best offenses. Stefon Diggs and Tyler Lockett, I mean, really nothing needs to be said. Both 2 great wide receivers. Diggs hasn't had a boom week recently, but this is a get-right spot, like I said, going up against the Seattle defense that gets absolutely demolished by opposing wide receivers and opposing quarterbacks, giving up the most amount of receiving yards to opposing wide receivers. They give up the most amount of catches. They give up 70 plus plays per game, which is number 1 in like NFL history. I think they're allowing opponent teams to average 75 or 76 plays per game. It's just an absolute fantasy goldmine in this game, and you can get contrarian for sure in this game by playing, a guy like John Brown at 4,600, who we know has an elite ceiling, and he is one of my favorite large field tournament plays this week in this Bills offense that is going to be pass-centric this week. Tyler Lockett at 6,800. He probably will have ownership. DK and Tyler Lockett are usually 15 to 20% owned every single week, and rightfully so. I mean, Tyler Lockett's boom weeks, he booms. I mean, his floor this season hasn't been great, as you could see, games of 7, 8, and 5 when Russ is targeting Metcalf, but 56, 40, 19, 17, you can never go wrong with playing Tyler Lockett in these large field tournaments. So, yeah, play the Seattle game, play the Cardinals game. These are 2 of the best games on the slate. I wouldn't get too crazy this week. I mean, the stacks kind of make themselves. Like I said in the intro, I'm going to have stacks of a lot of these teams. I mean, the Jags and the Texans are in a great game environment, but I would expect the Texans to easily control that game with Jake Luton starting for Jacksonville. Minnesota and Detroit is a game that I would also target, as both teams have very subpar defenses, and you can get a lot of these guys for cheap, and Dalvin Cook is probably the best running back play on the board this week at 8,200, but every single wide receiver is 6,700 or cheaper, and there is possibly some leverage to be had by playing this game over a game like the Seattle Buffalo game, especially if you can get an ownership discount on a guy like Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, even Marvin Jones Jr. has some large field tournament appeal. So I would say target this game, but like I said, I'm targeting every game. Like it's one of those weeks where every single one of these stacks could hit, and you're going to need to play multiple lineups. So that's what I will be doing to potentially maximize my range of outcomes. So that is going to be it for week 9 on DraftKings. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you wouldn't mind, like I said in the intro, help us get to 100 subscribers. We're 2 subscribers away actually. 98, we want to hit triple digits. Help us out. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a like on the video. And be sure to check out the DFS Dose podcast. Our week 9 preview will come out on Thursday. And then Ben's cash pool video on this same feed will come out on Friday. So tons of content every single week that you guys can look forward to. And that is going to be it. Have a good one, guys. I will see you guys on Thursday for the DFS Dose week 9 preview.